Good evening. We're going to call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee meeting to order for November the 9th, 2023. We want to welcome everybody here to our historic courthouse. And our first order of business tonight will be to approve our minutes, and I'm going to call on our Vice Chairman, Trey Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've reviewed the minutes and found everything to be in order. My motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion.
Second.
And 2 seconds there. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is public comments. And I do have a couple of people that have requested to speak, and I'm going to call as Mr. Josh Reynolds in the audience. If he is, you can come forward. Welcome. State your name and occupation.
My occupation. My name is Josh Reynolds. I work here in Murfreesboro, actually office on the square. I've got 2 businesses. We do co-working space, and we have a pop-up shop that we do retail out as well. We live here in Murfreesboro, just past MTSU. We like MTSU, it's our favorite bike path for my teenage son, so part of us being local on that side of things. I have also here representing the building ownership, 112 South Maple, so I'm in partnership with them in that building. So here is a small business owner, a resident, and as well as a building owner. And I'm here to express my approval and excitement for the Broad Street development. This is going to make a huge impact into our world and certainly a big difference inside of the community. I'm also interested in this project as we have been developing the hotel property that has been part of this project and spent the last 8 months or so developing that opportunity. We've completed 2 independent feasibility studies that look at the county and the city, as well as the Broad Street development, the occupancy of all the other hotels, the financial viability, the impact to the community, and all the things that go along with the new hotel associated with this project. The results of all of that have been a confirmed offer from Hilton International, as well as their commitment of financial support and development support, looking at one of their Tapestry properties. If allowed, this would be an upscale boutique hotel designed to fit into the architecture of the square and represent the history of the area. The hotel will be locally owned and operated and managed and would contribute to the growth and continued success of Rutherford County. Thank you.
Next, Sarah Callender. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Callender. I'm the Executive Director of the nonprofit Main Street Murfreesboro in the historic downtown. Main Street's mission is to maintain, enhance, and promote the historic downtown as the heart of our community. The historic downtown has grown over the last 37 years of the Main Street program as a central location to shop, meet friends, work, and take care of government needs. It has been revived and considered by some as a destination place, but it still needs our help. It needs our help to meet its full potential and stand competitively against neighboring downtown communities and even shopping districts within our own city that have gotten recent attention with new growth and housing options. Historic downtowns have long been recognized for their contribution to our community's cultural, aesthetic, and social character. One of the challenges our downtown now faces is lack of housing for people who want to live in and experience the heart of our city in a more walkable lifestyle. Our older and historic neighborhoods have served generations of families well. Now our downtown must meet the demand for more housing to provide homes for the young, homes for our working class, our community servants, including teachers, firefighters, police, and local government employees, as well as home for retired citizens. For the Murfreesboro Historic Business District to move to the next level of being considered a true destination place, we must welcome growth while at the same time protecting our historic authenticity. To achieve this, our downtown community needs more space for retail, restaurants, and office use. Also, our downtown needs to prepare for tourism with hotels and adequate parking and signage. Lastly, our downtown needs more housing options. The apartment and condo mixed-use option with the Keystone project is one way to encourage residential growth, creating a walkable downtown that supports and encourages locally owned businesses and enhances our sense of place as a destination to visit. The overall renovations proposed for the Broad Street and Church Street entrances of our historic downtown will be a game changer for years to come for all of our community members who have invested in small businesses downtown. Please consider voting in favor of the Keystone development project that will positively change the face of our historic community downtown for future growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Latour, I believe Paul's here to speak also.
Well, good evening. Paul Latour, President of the Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce, and pleased to be here to speak on behalf and urge your passing of the proposed TIF district for the Broad Street Development Program, the Keystone Project. From everything you've heard from the prior two speakers, one of the things that really excites me is the fact that we're going to have some more hotel options. We are woefully underserved as it relates to our hotel infrastructure here, and that would be a very big positive for that. In addition, I can tell you this is a real opportunity to really change the face, as Sarah just said before me, of our downtown, to transform it, to also maintaining the historical integrity of what we're doing here in Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. So I know the TIF district, in our opinion, is probably one of the most effective economic development incentives that you can do because it's all performance-based. And so I think that's exciting. If something were to go wrong, you already have public infrastructure there, and then it all goes back to the municipality, though. So I would urge you to pass it. Appreciate all the support you guys have given economic development in the Rutherford County over the past several years, and look forward to hearing the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, that's got all of our public comments that I'm aware of. Anyone that's wanting to make a public comment needs to call beforehand, and they can speak to Rachel or one of the other ladies, Carla, in the mayor's office. But also, if you're wanting to go to budget, you also need to contact the finance director, Michael Smith's office, so we're aware of it. Having said that, next up is our investment report. Mr. Beatty. Welcome.
I'm Rutherford County Trustee Ted Beatty. Our rates this month are, our banking rate is $4.95. It stayed constant. The LGIP rate is increased to $5.39, and our money market rate is at $5.71. And we did a bid. We were able to lock in funds for 2 years at 5.5%. And that was a very good bid this week, so we appreciate that. That's my report, sir.
Well, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I'll throw in. Well, I'll recognize Commissioner Irving first.
Just a quick question. The trend, is there a trend in interest? I'm looking at the materials, kind of a trend up, down. How is that looking for interest rates that we're earning, obviously? Well,
it's been up because a lot of the rates that we have today are tied to the Fed funds target, which is leveled for the last 2 months. You know, it's anybody's guess as to, is that a pause level? Is there another increase, or does it start to decline? We can't outguess the market, so we're starting to spread out a little bit. The LGIP, because a large amount of that fund, because it houses state funds as well, so it has billions of dollars in it, and about a third of that fund stays short term. So it tends to lag the market, Commissioner. So as rates have increased, That's why we're seeing the LGIP rate increase. The rest of our rates are staying fairly steady, but that has increased. But the CD rates, this was the best bid we've had on CDs in quite a long time.
And do we go out farther? What's our maximum length that we?
2 years. We have to have permission from the Comptroller's office to go out further than that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve the report.
Motion and a second. And I've got one question before we vote too. Tib, have you got any kind of an estimate on how much revenue this interest that we're accruing will come up for the end of the year?
Michael,
Roughly.
you may have that number better than I do.
So right now in the general fund, because I just looked at this last night, right now in the general fund, it's a little over $1 million a month. Now, we did increase our budget significantly from last year to budget for that. So we are over getting a little more than what we anticipated, but one of the things was we didn't want to get out of our skis on the budget because at any time the Fed funds rate could drop. And I'd say the large portion of our funds are tied directly to that Fed funds rate. But right now, as it stands today, it's a little over $1 million a month in the general fund. And of course, that's split between a lot of funds, but that kind of gives you a gauge on one of our largest funds there. The other thing I'll add is you're going to notice a little bit of a trend of it ticking up a little bit because we've started collecting property taxes. So that's just more cash on hand that we're going to have that earns that. So it could tick up a little bit, and then as we spend down that money throughout the year, it'll kind of level off. But hope that answers your question.
It did. The reason I mentioned that in the past, and some of you older commissioners can remember that, you know, I remember seeing an $8 million figure coming through in the past at one time, and it dropped significantly when the interest rates were down. Now that the interest rates are back up, which is not necessarily a good thing, but that does bring in some revenue that we haven't had in quite a while here at our local government level.
There was a time not that long ago, the LGIP rate was 3 basis points. That's 0.03. And it's hard to get enough zeros to make that add up. So today that's 539. So that's 536 basis points higher, but that's significantly different today. But that's why we've gone out a little longer. And you may ask, well, why did we take 5.5 when we've got money at 571? Because that could drop with the next meeting of the Fed. But the 5.5 is locked in for 2 years. Are we at the peak? Who knows? But we're probably close to a top. So we need to try to lock in some money so that we can continue to have those revenues going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is our fund condition report. We'll call on our Finance Director, Michael Smith.
So tonight, I'll go ahead and piggyback right off that. If you notice, our cash balances on your iPad are up significantly, and that's for 2 reasons. One, the main reason is during the month of October, we got our bond proceeds money deposited. So you'll notice we have an additional almost $180 million in cash as compared to where we started the month. The majority of that is going to be our bond proceeds that we received in. And the second thing is we have started collecting property tax in October. And so on the revenue report on your iPad tonight, we've collected approximately 6% of the property taxes that were levied, and that's right in line with the last 5 to 8 years, dating back to 2016, as you can see. The other thing I'd like to point out is just talking about investment income and some other local tax revenues, and so we are taking advantage of that investment income. However, we have noticed a slowing trend in sales tax, business tax, hotel motel tax, and things like that. And while that trend is slowing, and we are negative on some of those year over year, that doesn't mean we have not met our budget, because we did build our budget with anticipation of a slowing economy. So we are in line with our budget. That is a good thing. However, we have noticed a slowing in some of those revenues. The other thing I'd want to point out, and this is going to kind of piggyback on the fund condition report, is on your desk tonight, I gave you a budget book. This budget book is from the recent budget we are in. And I think the first 12 to 13 pages, as you flip through those, But let me know if you have any questions. But we've broken that in to several sections. One is going to be a budget summary. One section is going to be on property taxes, talking about the allocation of pennies and the movements of those. One section is going to be on projected revenues, and we've broken that down by source for you. And then one is going to be on appropriations or expenditures, and we've broken that down in several ways. So hopefully y'all find that useful. If you have any questions, please let me know. One thing I'll point out is I get a lot of questions on what we spend on debt. That is broken down in the book for you. We spend approximately 8% of our budget on debt-related items, both principal and interest. So that would be my fund condition report tonight.
Any questions for our director? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Irving.
Couple quick questions, Michael. On the revenue review page,
Yes?
can you point us to where the adequate facilities tax is?
Yes. So if you're on the page 1 of that, on your iPads, it's going to be highlighted in the blue, and it's going to say development tax is no longer collected in the general fund, but DT and ASFT, which stands for development tax and adequate facilities tax, is 49.24% more than prior year through the month of October 2023.
Okay.
So that's going to be broken down between two funds, between your debt service fund and the school's capital projects fund. So the dollar amount's not in there, but we give the percentage increase for year over year on that revenue report.
Okay. And then where the increase in fees that went into effect, okay, where are they on this?
So they're going to be lumped in with several items, but one of those is going to be licenses and permits. That's going to be included in that. Now, one of the things I'll go ahead and point out, and we don't break that out because it is a small amount as overall budget. But if you look right there on the general fund on that first page, you're going to see this second line down for licenses and permits, and roughly we're generally right around 30 to 34% over the last several years, and it jumps to about 44.9% increase this year as compared to budget, and one of the reasons for that is our increase in fees.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the director?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Michael. Next is our Risk Management Fund financial report.
Good evening. Ed Elam, Insurance and Risk Management Director. In your 264 fund for the month of October 2023, calendar year revenue, you will see $1,739,781. Expenditures, $1,670,499. Revenue less expenditures, $69,282 positive. For the year-to-date total, $20,049,079 in revenue. Expenditures, $16,591,849. Revenue less expenditures, a positive $3,457,230. And for the 23-24 fiscal year total, $7 million in revenue, $7,379,932. Expenditures, $7,635,623. Revenue less expenditures, a negative $255,691. In the 266 fund, OJI Workers' Comp, for the month of October 2023, the workers' comp is $25. OJI, $50,335.67. For the total for October is $50,360.67. Year-to-date total, you have In workers' comp, $4,677.14. OJI, $149,874.06. For the county attorney expense for the fiscal year for October, you have $38,212.61. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Heard the report. Any questions for Mr. Elam? Not, I'll entertain a motion. Piercy makes a motion to approve. Second. Commissioner Gooch. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. So item 6 is a resolution regarding the economic impact plan for the Project Keystone development area. Whoever is here to represent that is welcome to come forward. Oh, if you would state your name and your occupation.
Clark Klein with Klein Swinney Associates. We are architect and we're here to present the Broad Street Development Project. I also have Tom Trent, who's in the audience, and the development team, so when we get to questions on the TIF that I can't answer, Tom is the man.
I've got a question before we start. How many in here have seen their presentation that's on the committee? There's 3 of us. You've seen the presentation, parts of it. So, okay, please continue.
Yes, so for the last 2 years, we've been working with the city and some county officials on the development of the Broad Street development. We're here today to talk about a TIF. We've been to a couple other meetings with the hope to go to commission next week. So one thing to talk about this project, this is an urban renewal project that happens downtown, so very different than something that happens out in the outer parts of the county. So if you would think in the last 20 years, 30 years, when have you seen a development of any size happen in your downtown core? The reason you haven't seen it is because it's very expensive to develop in the downtown core, and if it's up to the typical developer without having an incentive like a TIF, they're going to go to Medical Center Parkway where there's flat land, where there's easy utilities, where they don't have to build vertical parking structures because it's more economical to build out there. Now you're seeing across the board in places like Franklin and Huntsville, they're going into their downtown cores and they're trying to take advantage of the existing buildings, infrastructure, and they're trying to get everybody to move back into downtown opposed to extend infrastructure out and creating sprawl. So the proposed development, the blue area behind City Hall is about 7.3 acres. That is where the proposed development is going to be located. Across the street from Broad Street in blue, you see a strip. That is the area that the city has purchased, and they're building Town Creek. They're opening up Town Creek and building a linear park and a pedestrian bridge that crosses over Broad. To date, they've already received grants for the Broad Street pedestrian bridge. Roughly $1.4 million has already been received, and they're about 25 to 50% in design on the park. And actually, the park now extends all the way over to the liquor store, old liquor store, I believe, on the corner. A little bit about the development team and the team. So we are the architects, and we're over engineering and planning. SEC, Matt Taylor, civil engineer. HRP Development, they're a longtime developer. They're local. They're not new to the area. They developed the banks with the late Mr. Pirtle. Al Miller with First Financial Bank is involved, but it's a very experienced team that's done these type projects before. Again, Dean Montgomery, Ryan, Todd, and Rob are all in the back sitting down, but what's unique about the development team, they also have a GC arm. So what I've seen, we're working with them on other projects. When times get tough, they have the ability to act as a contractor. Typically, that's hired out as a development team. So that nimble ability is unique within their team. And then they have, you know, they all have nice resumes. They all meet the pedigree that we need, and their proven track record. They're getting stuff done now in this time frame. With Al Miller, the bank that's very much involved, they're doing deals with them now and completing deals with them now. Here's some recent projects of theirs. There was a study done in 2017 by the city called the Historic Bottoms. This was basically a planning study on how to promote and how to develop the area in a way that makes sense. Pedestrian walking spaces, green spaces, parks, all of that. So the Broad Street development actually solves 3 of the primary elements that were depicted in the Historic Bottom study. So it's a good spin-off of the study that's already been done, and it's solving many of the issues that have been brought up in the Historic Bottom study. These are 3 developments that are very similar in scale and type. The Berry Farms in Franklin, Harpeth Square, and Indian Lake Village. What you'll see is the average income is anywhere between $120,000 to $144,000. So our target clientele is empty nesters, second home, young professionals coming out. Proposed mixed-use components, 4 leased dwelling units, there's 239 proposed. The 4 sale dwelling units is 80 to 100, and the boutique hotel is 80 to 150 rooms with retail space of 30 to 40,000 square feet. All of this will be parked on-site in structured parking structures. There's a total of 3 housing roughly 780 spaces altogether. One items that the developers offered in the development agreement is a Hometown Heroes concept. This is rent reductions on dwelling units for rent and for sale for police, firefighters, and teachers. It's a pretty sizable reduction. So for instance, a 1-bedroom unit that would typically cost $1,500 is going to cost around $1,000. We talk about the infrastructure improvement. So we're here today to talk about TIF. Again, like going back to my analogy of when you build downtown and you're building vertical and you're dealing with all the infrastructure, some of the things we have to do, we have sidewalks throughout our development, public parks, new curb and gutter, detangling old utilities, putting in new utilities, reworking utilities, a lot of the elements you wouldn't see in your suburban neighborhood. In addition to that, there is revisions that we have to do to both intersections at Church and Vine along Broad. In some cases we're widening, some cases we're realigning, in some cases we're adding better pedestrian crossings, just all the above, and that's something that we're designing and overseeing through construction. Site plan of the proposed project. The first thing that I'll tell you is any place you see green are possible locations for retail space at ground floor. Starting to the right, you see the blue building. We refer to that as the WGNS building. The green box on that site, WGNS is going to relocate out of their building after we build their building first, because they can't miss broadcasting an event. And to do the rest of the project, we have to build their section first, they move in, then we can demo all the buildings. But the blue building is for lease. There's parking fully underneath it. If you move over to the next building to the left, the pink and green, that is for lease with retail all at the ground floor. And there's a parking structure that's roughly 4 stories that's wrapped by the building there. And then if we move over to the orange and green, those are for sale condo with retail at the first floor with a parking structure that the building wraps. And then over at the corner, the purple is the hotel element. And you can see the red bridge that crosses over Broad and the bridge park that's on our side of the development connecting to the city linear park. Not to read all these, but the development is market rate, first class. You know, we're going to have everything from dog washes to dog parks to fitness parks to EV charging stations, grilling pits, everything that is needed and demanded by the public in a condo project, apartment project, mixed-use project. That effect. The architectural context and character is going to draw off the local building fabric, the buildings in and around the square. Urban elements, so when we talk about public infrastructure in the form of parks, sidewalks, this is an urban product opposed to a suburban product, so you're going to see very healthy landscaping and sidewalks to promote pedestrian connectivity and circulation. This is a massing model of the proposed site plan. Here you see all of the different buildings within the development. Everything is fitting the scale where actually all the height of the buildings, except for the one in blue, is around 4 stories. The one in blue is 5 stories. The hotel could be up to 6 if we build the maximum allowed in the development agreement. But all the structures are below the top of the city hall roof. So it's a gabled roof. This is a massing view at the corner of Church and Broad that shows the pedestrian park, the pedestrian bridge connecting over to a bridge park. You can see a 4-story structure with retail at the grade floor. We anticipate, high-end restaurant on the corner like a J. Alexander's or something like that. As we move mid-block, you see the connection to City Hall is maintained for their lower parking garage level. On the right, you have the for-sale, and on the left, you have the for-sale condos. On the right, you have the rental space. One thing to note is that we're fully parked. We're not depending on any spaces within the City Hall parking garage. And in fact, the city is going to be putting up parking arms to regulate. And so all of the parking for our development is parked on our site.
Could you repeat that? All the parking
Yes.
for your development?
Yeah, so all the parking for our development is on our site within our parking garages, and we're not utilizing any of the City Hall parking garages for the required parking and needed parking. And we're also not asking for any reductions in parking. Typically, mixed-use projects like this, they get like a 25% reduction on some elements because, as you can tell, when people are not living in apartments, are typically at work, and then you end up with less need for parking, but there's no parking reductions asked for in this. So the City Hall will maintain their parking count, and the city's also going to put parking arms at their entry points as a way to make sure that nobody just wants to park over there out of our development, and vice versa. It'll all be regulated. This is just a massing view at the other end of the site. You can see the hotel on the left and the condos on the right. This is a section, so we just took a knife and cut it through one of the buildings. You see City Hall and the rotunda, and this kind of shows you how we're not breaking the view line from the building we're in now. And, we're not obstructing views to this building. What we're really here today is, other than present the project, is talk about the TIF. So this is a 20-year TIF that we're pursuing, $26 million cap. The county appraised the value of the proposed development at $150 million. So when it's fully built, that's their appraised value on it. The annual property tax value generated with this development will be $1.5 million. The percentage of annual property tax to the county will be $1 million. The percentage of annual property tax to the city is $530,000. And then you have the additional items, which is the guaranteed annual sales tax revenue off the hotel, which is $128,000. The lodging and annual taxes to the county for hotel is $233,000, and the lodging and taxes to the city is $233,000. And on top of that, the retail and restaurant estimated annual sales tax is about $385,000. To the right of that, you see the public infrastructure elements that we are actually having to pay for in our project. So the TIF only pays for public infrastructure. It doesn't pay for apartments. It doesn't pay for condos. It doesn't pay for retail. It pays for the public parking elements, the sidewalks, the infrastructure support to the development. The cost total right now, the parking structure is running about $40 million in total. The public vertical circulation elements, stairs, elevators, and ramps within the garage is about 2.1. The surface parking is about $585,000. The public sidewalks, curb and gutter, and treescapes is about $1.7 million. Public utility improvements is about $3 million. Public parks and hardscapes about $700,000, and the stormwater and drainage improvements about $460,000. The total cost for the public infrastructure is about $48.9 million. This slide represents what it looks like over the 20-year process for the TIF. So this is assuming the project moves forward. Right now, there is 2 pieces of property that pay property tax. The WGNS radio station, it pays about $4,000 a year. The county's getting roughly $2,600 of that. So with the proposed development, if completed, in 2027, you can see the property tax going to the county of roughly $209, and then the lodging tax. So the annual tax receipts yearly through the TIF process is about $463,329 to the city and $566,233 to the county. Once you're past the TIF 20-year term, that number will go up, right? And that goes back to the number that was shared before, the 1.5. I think if you actually subtract the 1.5 and you do that to the 566, it's like 1.6 or 1.7 would go to the county. I've heard and had a lot of conversations about we don't want to end up with a hole in the ground or a project that's halfway built, not built. So over the last couple years, what's taken us a while to get to is a development agreement with the city. And the city had a past project, what they learned, learned from mistakes and how to proceed forward. But the development agreement has a lot of language that basically every 120 days throughout the duration of the project, if the developer does not perform, the property reverts back to the city for the cost that they paid, that it was bought for. All the diamonds in this schedule that are, pink and black are specific milestones and clawbacks tied to the overall schedule for construction and the deliverables. So where we are right now, the first blue bar, this is the PUD and TIF process. We suspect that will be over roughly around March, and then we move over and you see the next red bar, which is when the first time you'll see construction start, and that's about 8 to 9 months after the PUD and TIF process. That is the construction of the WGNS radio station. And then when you see the green bars, which will happen somewhere halfway in construction, we'll start demolishing of all of the city properties and all the property there so we can build everything else. And then you can look at the last 4 red bars. That is the construction of all of the buildings. So what's important to note is if we don't get PUD and TIF approval, the project doesn't go. It doesn't work. It's not viable. If we don't build WGNS per the schedule, it doesn't work. It's not viable. The county's not out anything. The city just gets the property back and tries again. Again, these are complicated projects. They typically require public and private involvement to do it, and they take a long time. I was talking to the developer for the Harpeth Square development, went through the very similar process in Franklin. That whole process was about 6 to 7 years from conception to construction. And what that project has done is it was built in the downtown square, and you can kind of see how stuff is developed around the square in Franklin. Very similar to what you're going to see happen here. Just on the parking requirements, these are the parking that we have. We are parking this fully. We're not taking any shortcuts. The development team wants this to park just as well as anyone else, because if it's not parking well, then their patrons are upset and they're not going to come back. That's the end of my presentation. If you'd like to talk to Tom Trent, or you have any questions for me, open for questions.
Well, we'll start with our committee. Anybody on the committee have any questions? Irvin, I see you got your mic up. Mr. Gooch, Vice Chairman
Excuse me,
Gooch.
how many acres in all did you say this was?
7.2.
And it was all of the locations on the map. If you could go back to that.
Right there. So everything in blue Really, the top right-hand corner, the 7.3 acres, the blue area in there is the property. And just so you get an idea of density, there was a TIF that came in previously that was done in Smyrna. Our density is roughly 75,000 square feet per acre. That was about 12 to 20,000. That gives you an idea of the density that we have to get to make this viable on the project.
So you're saying it's just coming up Church Street to the right?
To the right, plus the empty parking lot in front of the NHC Tower.
But behind City Hall, that blue area, is that part of it?
Yes, behind City Hall, the blue area all behind City Hall, and then the blue area in front of the NHC Tower is 7.3 acres.
All of that equals 7.3 acres?
Yes, sir. This, I kind of leave up this. Shows development.
Recognize.
Just a few questions. Parking for county employees, is there going to be any?
Yes. The county,
How many spaces in your development?
Okay, so there's no parking for county employees in our development, but the parking for the city hall, there is ample parking for county employees. So right now, that parking garage is not even at 50% capacity at its best use. So if county functions may happen over there, there's ample parking for the county functions to happen.
Okay, what's the dollar value of the impact fees to City of Murfreesboro that you anticipate paying under this?
About $2.5 million.
And what's the dollar value of the adequate facilities, impact fees, whatever, to the county? Do you anticipate?
I don't know what that is. It's what is due. Does anybody know out there? No. Unfortunately, my civil engineer is on date night, and he would know the answer to that question.
Could you commit to send that in an email?
Most definitely.
Quick question for Michael. The cost to finance 21 million over 20 years.
Where Michael earns his money, by the way, guys.
You said the cost to finance 21 million over 20 years? If I use the same interest rate that we just, or the same true interest cost that we just...
Just an annual number.
$1.5 million.
Thank you.
Per year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee?
You had talked about the HEROES program.
Yes.
I'm not really familiar with that. What is?
So it is for the development, for the rental and the for sale product. It's a dedicated reduction in rent and for sale, and that's for the lifetime of the project, and it's dedicated for teachers, police, and firefighters. So it's a way to subsidize the cost of living for professionals that you want in your development and in your city.
And who subsidizes that? Is it
the development team? So they're basically, if I was to rent one, I wouldn't qualify because I'm not a teacher or a police officer. So it would just reduce my rent rate or reduce my sale rate.
And would they get preference?
What do you mean preference?
Well, if they're doing leases for the rental and say there's 100 applications.
No, it'd probably be first come, first served. So there's only a certain percentage. And I'll go to the percentage somewhere. So I don't So for the 4 leased dwelling units, 5% of the total dwelling units will receive 30% below market rate. So they'll get a 30% reduction in rent for 5% of 239, 240 apartments.
So it's just the HERO program goes to 5%.
Correct.
And if that 5% is filled up, another firefighter applies, he's going to pay the regular price.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And it works the same way on the for sale product.
Chairman Harris.
Concerning the retail space, is there any covenants or anything that's going to prevent, what I want to say, is it going to be high-end lease retail?
Yeah,
Or
so
I mean, we don't want to necessarily see certain things down here in this project, so is there any type of covenant or anything that deals with that?
So during the PUD process, you have to establish different uses. So specific uses will be taken out, like, you know, I don't know if we haven't gotten there yet, but we wouldn't want a vape shop, right? And we're not seeing that level coming to this project. But that would be the mechanism that would keep different establishments out of the development. So it's, for instance, we wouldn't want vape, we wouldn't want a nudie shop, you know, all that kind of stuff would actually be written into the PUD and be excluded from ever being on the site ever, if that makes any sense. Yes.
Tom Trent, I'm an attorney at the Bradley Law Firm, and I'm counsel to the city of Murfreesboro on this. And one thing we did here is we put in the agreement called the funding agreement, which relates to the disbursement of money under the TIF, a series of restrictive covenants on top of the planning and zoning. So, for example, without specific conversation or approval, it prohibits fuel and lubricant sales, dry cleaning facilities, you know, some kind of nursery for plants, vehicle sales, leasing, parts, selling, car washes. There's a whole list, and it's in the pawn shops, tattoo parlors, payday loan providers, to make sure that the development is reflective of the type of retail tenant that you want in your gateway to downtown. And so as part of approving the TIF, we're able to add additional requirements to the deal, and the developer has agreed to that. So I wanted you to be aware there's a whole nother layer on top of planning and zoning. Thank you.
Did that answer you?
Sounded like it.
I didn't even know about all that, so.
Yeah, no adult books.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah, and it's, you know, this kind of we want a quality tenant. You know, we did talk about barbecue. Barbecue would be nice, but not here because you don't want to smell the barbecue. Maybe across the street. But, you know, a J. Alexander's would be good, a Whole Food Market. And this type of development will bring those type of tenants.
How do you do that? By zoning?
Well, not just zoning, it's really investing the money. So, you know, why the gentleman that came up and talked about the hotel, the only reason Hilton Tapestry wants to come here, because it's an unproven market, is really the fact that this is a sizable mixed-use development of high quality, and that you're also had to see the city building a linear park with a bridge. That type of infrastructure is going to bring those kind of tenants. So, you know, they're searching for the place to be because they want to make, you know, they want the window space, and they're there to make a buck too, right? So they're going to follow those type of developments.
Anybody else on the committee have a question? Chairman Phillips, you got anything you want to kick in before I've got a question or two I want to ask?
Not anything. I've made some comments at property management, I believe, and this project is extremely important to the citizens of Rutherford County that reside in Murfreesboro. And county's in the process of developing, or not developing, but rewriting our long-term comprehensive plan for Rutherford County. This is part of the Murfreesboro Comprehensive Plan. This is part of their written plan, part of what they're trying to do. And it's a vertical type of building, and that's one of the things that our cities have to look at simply because their land is disappearing. And it's extremely important, once again, to the citizens of Rutherford County, especially those that live in Murfreesboro. The long-term financial impact is significant. I'm not only a supporter of it, but I just think it's the proper thing to do for us to help develop our cities in a way that generations to come will be proud of. And this is the type of development that I think that Rutherford County should be looking for. It's almost like the development that's going on, I think, out in Commissioner Gooch's area that relates to senior citizens and the development that's out there. It's going to be an asset, a real asset to the community for generations, not just years, but for generations.
Okay, I've got a couple of comments or questions that I've got. I'm still a little confused on the parking. You know, we're looking at possibly changing our library over to county offices. And if that's the case, our public needs access to those parking areas there. You said something about having a gate. How would that work for somebody that lives in the community versus Joe Blow driving from Smyrna to come down to pay his taxes, or whoever in the county that wants to get in there and find a parking space to our office areas?
So there's all kinds of, if it's a gate or like a system that happens downtown where they, you know, you scan your barcode and you pay. So it would be either a validation system to where if you are a county employee or a city employee, you go up to the barcode and you enter a number and you don't have to pay for parking. If you're the public and you're going in, you're going up, you're entering a number, it opens the gate, it lets you in, but you're validating your parking so you don't have to pay for parking. So it'll be a validation process to keep that.
So how would you validate someone like me that just drove in from out of the county?
Yeah, so typically what would happen is you would go in and it would give you a ticket to pay for your parking, but you would go up and pay for your ticket, and they would validate your parking ticket, so when you go out, you enter a number and it doesn't charge you. That's typically how that's handled.
Okay, but you're saying that the people that are living in these hotels, or they're down there at the pool, and they decide, hey, I don't want to drive over here or walk over here, they're going to park in these parking spaces, they're going to end up paying?
They wouldn't be going into the City Hall parking garage. They would stay in our development. If they're within our development, that's not to say that the public outside of this development couldn't park in the City Hall, but they would probably pay for parking. So I know there's a conversation amongst the city and county, and it's on this square and it's on your public parking garages, that there's probably going to be a cohesive discussion on how do you deal with public parking for the county and the city, so people aren't parking for free, right? And you're not building more parking structures. But if you're coming to...
I want our citizens to be parking for free that are coming to our businesses. I mean, we own part of that parking garage ourselves. That's not just the city's parking garage.
Correct. So it would just be validated. So either if they have a reason to be there where they wouldn't pay for it, and this is above my head, but it happens all the time. It's just through a validation process that it would take place.
Well, I just want to ensure that our citizens that are not county employees and are not, you know, involved with that development have a place to park, and it's not going to cost them anything.
That's correct. Yes.
Now, I may come across a little harsh on here, and I've got some pretty pointed questions and some problems with this. However, I want to state that I think that this is a good development for downtown Murfreesboro, and I'm not necessarily against doing that. As a matter of fact, that bridge over Broad is extremely needed, the pedestrian bridge. I think we've had, 3 people killed in the last couple of years trying to cross the street there. So we definitely need that bridge built if we don't do anything else out of that development. You know, just for life safety. But now I'll get into my questions, other ones. On your PowerPoint, you had 4 developers there, Mr. Montgomery, Seaford, Rob Turner, Ryan Little. How many of those folks live in Rutherford County?
None of those folks live in Rutherford County.
None of them do?
No.
So they're developers from outside this county.
Yeah, they live in Brentwood, Nashville. Correct.
Are they members of Home Builders Association, those type of
No.
development communities?
Development communities. Now, they have, just so you know, they've done deals in Rutherford County successfully, the banks with one.
So basically, what you're asking me to do is to give county taxpayer dollars to developers that don't live in this county. And of course, we're going to get, what, $560,000 a year revenues for 20 years. However, what you didn't say is we're going to be paying, let's say, $1.3 million per year if you figure $26 million over a 20-year period, if my math's right. So basically, $740,000 per year is coming out of our taxpayers' dollars to support these developers and have them being able to do this. You agree with that?
I don't know if I can agree with that because I don't know everything about it. Tom Trent, can I agree with that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure those numbers quite match up with what was in the IDB.
Well, I'm making a rough estimate. What I did is if you got 26 million, you divide that out by 20 years, that's about 1.3 million per year. 560 something, I forget the exact number you said, we'll actually start getting in revenues after is it the first year? Well, you know, if you subtract that from the 1.3, that's $740,000 that we are actually going to be giving this development to let it occur, because they're saying it won't occur if we don't give them that money. So we're giving them, our citizens, taxpayers' dollars to do this, and I just want to be clear about what's going on here. Now, the reason I'm even bringing this up is a lot of times we have municipalities come to us and they need help, and I want to help them. But you know what? The county needs help occasionally, and one of the things we need help on is development tax. We don't have the same rights that the municipalities have because of the way the state laws are set up, and we need help from the development community. We need help specifically from Murfreesboro City and the City Council to, I would say, at least send a letter of recommendation to our state representatives saying, hey, let Rutherford County have the same ability to form development fees or taxes, or whatever you want to call it, that the municipalities have. I think that would be a fair trade for us as far as me wanting to support y'all, and I do want to support y'all, but I don't want to do it at the expense of my taxpayers' dollars. And the reason I'll drive that home, we just did a tax increase of 26 cents this last year, and every citizen in this county is having to pay that. And one of the reasons we haven't been able to raise money and revenues for the schools that we sorely need is because we're not able to raise our development fees or taxes. However, the city can. They just recently did that, as a matter of fact. And I would like their help, and I know that's not you, but I want to publicly say, if you want public money from the county's citizens and taxes, and the developers that are out here, as a rule, are fighting us at the state level, and I don't think that's very even trade for me giving my taxpayers a 26 cents tax rate hike, and then you turn around and ask me for $740,000 a year for the next 20 years out of the same taxpayers' dollars. You know, something is not right there. That's the problem I've got with this development. That's really the only thing I've got. I think it's a good project. I think it will bring revenue in. If everything goes as planned, you know, I think it's going to make the traffic a lot more busy downtown and a lot harder to get around. But other than that, you know, the rest of the projects are there. And I think Chairman Phillips is right. This is a good thing for downtown Murfreesboro. But I want to make sure it's a good thing for all the citizens in the county, especially since all the citizens in the county, including the ones in Murfreesboro, are paying that 26-cent tax hike, right? Now, you may. I don't know that I asked you a question, but
Well,
you can.
one question, well, I guess part of your summary on the taxes I want to make sure everybody's clear about is that the city and the county keep all the local sales tax. The city and county keep all of the local hotel and motel tax. This TIF district does not include personal property. It can. So the personal property taxes here are retained by the city and the county because on a hotel and the offices and other things being developed in this TIF plan area, you will keep that revenue. And for hotels, as you know, every few years they have to toss all of the personal property and buy new and replace it, so that comes back on the tax rolls again. And importantly, the portion of your budget that every year as it changes, that is for what's called dedicated tax under the TIF Uniformity Act, that is the portion of your budget allocated to debt service, has to be retained and will be retained by the city and the county. So my understanding is as of last year, that total, which includes the schools portion, was a little over 21% of the new increment you would retain. If that goes up over time, you retain that amount. And the one thing I do know is that these numbers that we've been using will be wrong. And the reason is because they ignore inflation. And on these plans, as the property goes up and over time values increase, this will get paid back faster. And the way the city cut this deal is it's $26 million cap, so it's the earlier of 20 years or when it hits 26 million, and that is including interest. So the total cap with interest rates going up stays at 26 million. It's not 26 million plus interest. So you can expect with inflation over time as this develops for this to get paid back faster than 20 years. I just want to make sure we're clear about that. Thank you.
Well, have you got anybody here from this group of developers that might answer my question about help with the state delegation? I'd say that was a no. I'm aware of that.
No, but you did mention the city, and the city's...
Do state your name. And
oh, yes, right. Craig Tyndall, City Manager, City of Murfreesboro. Of course, to support legislation requires council direction, but last time around, the city did not do anything that would oppose the county doing development income tax or impact fees. Whether the city can support it, I don't think the city has any issue with development impact fees for the county. We did just implement them, so we wouldn't have any issue with those whatsoever. I'm pausing because I'm trying to think of the other. As far as the financial aspects of this, right now the county gets $2,500 a year on what's sitting on that property right now. This development's estimated, and as Mr. Trent said, the numbers are estimates right now, and they'll probably go up. But the estimates out of this project is about $570,000 a year, exclusive of personal property tax. We didn't even attempt to do personal property tax because that's complicated to figure out what that would be. But on top, that would be on top of the $570,000 a year. This 7 acres, if we develop this alternatively into something else, the most you could get there on this development if you went straight retail, which is your highest tax dollar value that you'd get out of this piece of property. And likely it wouldn't be developed because the rooftop isn't there. And you need rooftops to support the retail. But if you develop that, the maximum amount you get in there is about 85,000 square feet of retail if you had to do surface parking, all right, no TIF. If you're going to do anything more than that, you're going to need to go back and you're going to have to do the TIF. But if you did no TIF and you just did retail in there, you get about $250,000 a year. So it's more than double that you would get on that, and that's without a TIF. That's all the amount you'd get out of it. If you did office in there, you get about 120,000 square feet. You get about $150,000 a year in full property value on taxes, exclusive of personal property tax, just apples to apples across the board. So this is the alternative that provides the highest dollar value. As a city, we go through the same process that you do. We have the same needs, not all the same needs. You have greater needs in the schools issues, obviously, but we have needs as well. We're not giving up tax dollars. We're doing a project like this to maximize the amount of tax dollars we can get over a long term. And we can present value all those numbers. The comparisons are outstandingly in favor of doing a project like this, well over what any alternative would be in any period of time that you'd put on there. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that.
Greg, how soon would we start seeing the revenues from, say, if you went ahead and put up the housing?
Well, as soon as the valuation will be done, so as soon as the property exchange hands, that the property would be valued now, as soon as Rob would value the property, and then they would pay taxes in that year. And then as the property is developed, and Bart showed a timeline on there, that probably would come in. I think there's a 4 years estimate to get through the entire, so the full value would be 4 years from now.
Well, the reason I asked about timing there, I know that as soon as children start moving in there, we're going to be paying for their schools and the development for that. But one thing I want to ask you, and this is a personal favor, would you mind going to our mayor of Murfreesboro and the city council and ask them if they would support us by sending a letter to our delegation asking them to support us with our endeavor to change the laws so that we have the same rights that Murfreesboro City's got as far as charging for development type fees?
Yeah, absolutely. We can, I'll talk to the mayor about what the county would like to do, whether it's development impact fees, whether it's a transfer tax, or what's the alternative? There's some alternative that...
And like I said, I'm coming across, I know, harsh about some of this, but, you know, just like Chairman Phillips said, just very important to people downtown in Murfreesboro, but it's just as important to the people down in Reedville that are paying these taxes to support this project, because we're funding it. Just like the schools in Laverne and Smyrna, you know, 51 years since we built a high school out in my district, but our citizens are paying for these schools. And that's why I'm asking for this money here. That's why I'm asking for the support from the city council. That's why I'm asking for the support from our development community, our realtors group. But I would appreciate your help on that, Craig.
Certainly.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Can you go back to the slide of Broad and Church Street? And I have a question for Mr. Tyndall. Right there. Hold you back up. Right there. Right there. Craig, property here on Church and Broad on the corner, it's a car lot on each side. Now, do you own the land of the car lot on the left?
We own or are about to own. I think we did close on both of those lots.
One across the street too?
Yes.
What about the buildings across the street that are right on the back side of that car lot on the right? The green with the green roof.
Green roof? No, that's privately owned.
Okay, so is the property above it right before the blue, that's also privately owned, right?
It's also privately owned. I think right now, we all know that those are underutilized pieces of property. And with a development like this, one aspect of a development like this that's important is the indirect impact of a development. So as the new development comes on, what you're likely to see is that older properties like this that are underutilized gets redeveloped, and the tax value on those properties goes up substantially.
So has the city reached out to try to purchase this property?
No, not on those, no.
Okay, my second question is, according to the print or whatever, the slide that you had of this space, I believe you had like a fountain or something. Is that correct? Can you show us that?
The park has
Right there.
water.
So,
You're talking about on that side?
Yes.
so is this something that you're going to do, or is this just for pretty it up?
No, so the anticipation is, since the city's building the bridge, is this is going to be a bridge park at the landing. So the city, as they design the park and as we design our facility, we're going to kind of design together to basically make the best kind of space, public space we can make on this side.
Okay, my last question, and this one's a tough one, is we have a very big homeless problem right there at that area. Y'all came up with a plan or what you're going to do to the problem? Because the property on the right, which is, you said, privately owned, that's where a lot of it is.
Yeah, well, the private landowners really need to, the city is there to assist. And if there are homeless on private property, if the property owner trespasses those, then certainly the city can do something about that. On public property, do we have a plan? Yes, we're constantly working with the homeless situation that we're faced there. When you see a lot of development and a lot of activity, that will reduce a homeless population in being in that area. They generally don't want a lot of light, a lot of activity over. So likely that will assist with that type of situation.
So it is a situation you agree is a problem, and you are dealing with it?
Yes, oh yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from members of the committee? Chairman Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is just a question to make sure I'm understanding this. So currently, the county receives about $2,900 a year on property taxes, is what I'm reading from here.
25,
20,
26 in round numbers, yeah.
And so as a property is developed and improved, that number is going to go up, and the developers will pay the property tax. And then the county is going to rebate 79%, and then the 21%.
Right, about 21% retained by the county.
And then we keep 21%. And where did you say that is dedicated, or did you say?
The 21% that comes to the county, that's for, well, I'll let Michael answer.
The
That's probably
debt service fund. So that won't actually kick in until the TIF kicks in, which would be when I believe that's 4 or 5, based on their timeline. So up until then, they will pay the full valuation once the property changes hands to the property owner, to the development team. Once the project is done and the TIF kicks in, based on all the timelines set in place by the city, the property tax, the real property tax portion, we will keep the dedicated portion, which is our debt service portion, which is about a little over 21% of our property tax rate. We will then, the other percentage would go back to the developer versus what they paid. We'd essentially rebate that back to them. We would keep the hotel motel tax, sales tax, personal property portion, but that doesn't kick in until, I don't know your timeline, 27 or 28, once the TIF would kick in. Now, one thing that I want to make sure is clear, the TIF is between both the county and city. So the $26 million is not just paid back by the county. So highly likely this will be paid back sooner, but it's the total dollar amount paid back when the TIF is done, not just from the county property tax. So the city is also rebating their property tax rate into this as well to contribute to the $26 million. Mr. Trent may want to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I understand this agreement set in place.
I think that's correct, and yeah, and there is an administrative fee, so that's the administration cost is also paid.
And so during the time of the TIF, the developers are paying the property taxes.
Right.
Okay, and Chairman P., you had mentioned that Rutherford County citizens are paying them. I'm not understanding.
That 1.3 million, what I was saying, if you took 26 million, divide that by 20 years, that's 1.3 million per year. And what I'm saying is the difference from what the county would be getting in, I think they said 560-something thousand per year is what we would start making right off. But anyway, if you subtracted that, there's about $740,000 difference between the 1.3 and what we'd be getting in. Now, as Michael was pointing out, that's citizens in Murfreesboro will be paying that also. So, you know, that's all the citizens of the county. I count Murfreesboro City as part of this county, so.
Well, what I was trying to say
Taxes
is
from the city too.
their tax rate as well, they'll keep their dedicated portion as well. So it won't just be the county writing a refund check back to the development team. It would also be the city writing a yearly check back as well.
But
Analogy, the way I understand the analogy. Thought process in the conversation. I haven't seen a project like this happen. The 1.3, and I understand the analogy, but really.
Your point, the only tax that is used to pay this development cost, which is public infrastructure, is tax generated, real property tax generated on just this site. Some TIF plans include additional property around them that is benefited by the project happening, such as the property that you were asking about. That will be benefited, and some communities would include that to get it paid back faster. We're not doing that here. It's only the revenue generated from this site, paid for by the tenants, owners, developers, people on this property.
So, back to Chairman P's comment, just so I understand, it's not the Rutherford County citizens who's paying the tax, it's the developers who don't live here.
people that live there, they live in Rutherford County.
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
But the taxpayer doesn't get the tax. That's more the point. The tax would, if it were developed on its own and money came in, then a certain amount's dedicated to the city, a certain amount's dedicated to us, we would forego that amount.
But, okay, but what I'm guessing is it's not being developed.
Well, that goes to whether you believe it's going to be developed over the next 20 years or not. If you think it's going to be any time out to about 15 or so, you probably collect more tax, assuming it's developed at an appropriate level. Okay, then that's all speculation. So I mean, if you think it's going to be developed over the next 10 years, then to roughly this level, to approximately this level, you would basically say, why do we give them a TIF? Because we're going to collect a lot more tax. Okay. If, however, you think it's not going to be developed over 20 years or longer, okay, and then take the whatever it is number and go. I mean, that's basically where you are. That's kind of the analysis. If you think it's going to be developed, then sooner than that in the ordinary course. If that makes, go ahead.
Okay, but also with the TIF, we're more, or the city, is more in control of what's going there. So if it was going to be developed under normal circumstances, then that's where you would see the car washes, the vape shops, the liquor stores, the payday loan places.
Yeah, and there's a lot of speculation there. I mean,
Well, that's what's there in that area now.
Right, but there's no way to know. If you go back to other locales, and I have seen other locales where there is a visionary developer that goes in and builds something without government assistance, okay, then if that's the case, if someone were to step into the Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, this area and do that, if you don't think anybody will ever do that, then probably the TIF probably makes sense. If you think at some point a developer is going to look at this land and say, we've got this land and we really do need to, do something with it, and I've got a grand vision then that would be the way to go. We should reject the TIF.
But there's no, other than the TIF, there's been no grand vision from anyone that you know of.
Yeah, we did an analysis where we looked at what we would typically see if left to its own devices without this. You would see sporadic development. And we did an analysis where we said, okay, let's say every 5 years someone puts in $10 to $12 million in development. And we compared that to the TIF, and it was still better to build this big project at once on the TIF. And so, and we see this all the time, and it is the grand vision, it is the vision that starts it. When you look at East Nashville, when you look at the Gulch, when you look at these places, downtown Franklin, that have gone this direction, you know, they don't do TIFs anymore. They do this one TIF to get this big project to come in to spur development, because the residual impact, which really takes this conversation and put it on its ear, is when someone puts $150 million in an area like this on 7 acres, what's going to happen to the next 30 acres around it? You're going to see triple, quadruple that over that 10-year period. But until something of any size goes in, you won't see it because they're too scared. It's an unproven market. Right now, condos in downtown Murfreesboro, there is not a condo project. So these guys are going out on a limb to build condos. There's no retail that is of any high-class retail in downtown Murfreesboro. It's everything around the square. So it takes a development team, and they're probably going to be out of town because they do that kind of stuff, you know, and it's going to take a project like that really to spur really what the bottom study that the city did to happen. I mean, that's the end goal, is really to rejuvenate your old city fabric, and it takes these type of projects to do it, which are 90% of the time TIF projects. I think the first project in the Gulch we saw the tower go up in '09. I can't think of the name, the Terrazzo. That was all TIF, and then everything around it just, you know, kind of blew up. So we're not saying we want it to blow up, but that just shows you how it spurs the development to come.
When you were looking at the financial on this and that you were just explaining, did you take into account the infrastructure costs that the city and the county will be incurring because of this development, such as schools, more police, more fire?
Yeah, so what we do not anticipate is you typically don't see kids and families in these developments. It's very unlikely they want to go to a house in suburbs. I mean, I personally would not want to raise my 3 kids in downtown Murfreesboro on a busy street. You're not going to get that, and that's typically the demographic. We are paying impact fees to the city, which would account for city schools. I know they have the right to go to county schools here, but we are paying the school fees. We are paying infrastructure fees to the city of $2.5 million. So all of that is in there. I do believe, is police fire served by the county, or is it some of it served by the city? I believe that's served by the city here.
Ambulance service is served in the city, so. And also the sheriff's department also operates in the city.
We've had a lot of conversations, and I understand those are real things, but I also think a development like this and what it's going to generate is you're going to have development happening anyways. Why not have development happen the way you want it to happen?
And I understand that, and like I said, when I started this, I've got some questions, and it's mainly got to do with getting support at the state level so that the county can have the same opportunities that the municipalities such as Murfreesboro have, so that we don't continue having to burden our taxpayers with property taxes. That's the bottom line. And it infuriates me when I'm using these property taxes to pay developers to be able to do something like this, and then getting slapped in the face at the state level when these same people are fighting us and paying people to fight us at the state level. You know, I want to see that turn around. You want my help? Help me. I think I've made my point there, but are there any other questions from the committee? I don't want to keep dragging this out. If there's not, I'm going to entertain a motion. Any of you got a question, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I have one question. Does the city own this property, or have they sold it?
The city owns the property, so there is a development agreement that's already been put in place and executed. The transfer of the property happens once the TIF and PUD is approved. So this is one of the steps that have to happen.
Are you going to sell ownership of the property, or are you going to lease it to the developer?
No, the developer owns the property, and so this developer retains and owns their development. So for instance, the bank's development they developed a couple years ago over by, what's the part of town? It's over by Costco. New Salem. They still own that property. So these are long-term holders, and that's really the developer you want, is someone that's not developing this to flip it. It is a legacy project for them, so it's a long-term hold.
Can you disclose the value the city put on this property?
I believe it's $5 million, around $5 million. And just so you know, part of the development agreement is we have to build a new building for WGNS because they are the one stamp within the development that owns a piece of property. So the developer is building them a new building at no cost, and they're moving over because they want to see this development happen too. So if you think about that, it's really about a $7.5 million cost on the property because they're having to build the building and do all that kind of stuff.
But the new building for WGNS is to no expense to the city?
No, it's to no expense to the city, no.
Thank you.
Chairman Harris.
First of all, this project went before property management and passed. This went before steering and passed. So I want to make a motion to approve this project and send it to the full commission.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sereno has a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to go ahead.
Well, if it's been in all these committees, I'm assuming the county attorney has looked at it and commented on it.
Michael, do you know one way or the other where our attorney's been involved with this?
I know he is aware of it, but I do not know if he's reviewed it in detail. But I do know he is aware that Mr. Trent's office was one with the TIF, but I'm not sure if Mr. Trent has been in conversation with him.
You want to speak, come to a microphone, please. And you are welcome to speak. So.
Yes, he's been copied on all of this, and it's been approved by the Industrial Development Board, and the city. And he's been in the loop, and we actually exchanged emails about it again this morning.
Chairman Harris, do you want to add a caveat with the county attorney's approval on that?
Yes. Do I need to restate it?
That's fine if it's okay with your second. Commissioner Sereno, is that okay with you? Okay, so the caveat added to his motion is according to our county attorney's approval. Commissioner Irvin, I couldn't see you that.
No worries. I just wanted to ask, I do think it's an attractive development. And, you know, I would encourage wholly private development like this, wherever it occurs, and if it takes a while, so be it. I am concerned about the cost of the TIF to Rutherford County taxpayers over the next 20 years. So I'm a no vote.
Any other comments? Hearing none, call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, the motion carries, and we'll be going to the full commission next Thursday night. Gentlemen are welcome to come back. The next item on our agenda is number 7, General Fund Budget Transfer for the Correctional Work Center. Bill, we should have swapped your numbers around there.
Bill Cope, Superintendent, Correctional Work Center. All that will be a good warm-up for what I have for you. I'm here tonight to request a budget amendment to move $5,000 from our 196 line to, which is in-service training, over to 336. maintenance and repairs for some preventative maintenance on our kitchen equipment.
Heard the request. Any questions for the superintendent?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Irving.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Okay, motion carries there.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Bill. Item number 8, Ambulance Service Fund Budget Amendment. I think I saw Mr. Gaither. Yep.
Good evening. Brian Gaither, EMS Director. I am requesting to move donation line items from previous fiscal year into that line item this year, and also $350 donation into that line item.
Okay. Let's see, Commissioner Sereno, you're on public safety. This pass out of public safety item. Any questions for the director? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Irvin, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Okay, item number 9, Highway Fund Budget Amendment. Greg and Mary.
Commissioners, good evening. I'm here tonight to bring to you a salary increase for our Highway Department employees and our Public Works employees. It's a mid-year pay increase to try to keep them afloat with the high inflation we're all facing. So we will be moving this money from our Public Works fund ending balance, excuse me, and our Highway Department fund ending balance. This amounts to a total of $96,553, and that's for the salary increase as well as the benefits that would go along with that. This was approved at our road board meeting Monday morning, who is technically my budget committee, but it was unanimous, and then Public Works, and now we're here to budget to move on to full commission.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can you explain, is this, okay, wasn't budgeted in the prior budget, or was it?
No, sir, it was not. I like to see, this is not unprecedented. I've done this 3 or 4 times, a mid-year raise like this. I like to see where we finish up and what we're able to transfer into our fund balance before I make this kind of decision. I do understand completely that this is reoccurring, and we will have to find a place for it in our upcoming budget, but no, sir, this was not.
And when would the raise take effect?
It would take effect January 1.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you all.
Very much.
Item 10, General Fund Budget Amendment for Archives. Is John here? Don't see him, so Michael, I guess you get to carry the load on this one. Well, let me ask the committee this. He is asking for, is it a grant? Do you have any time restraint on that? If not, we can put this off and let him come in and ask himself.
I do not know if there's a time constraint on this grant. This was a grant that he applied for. It is a no-match grant. It's in the amount of $4,856, and it's from a period of October 1st through May 31st of '24. And it is no match, but I do not know if there's a time constraint on this.
Committee, do y'all want to go ahead and hear this or put it off till next month?
I think we need to make a motion to approve it.
Yeah, I have a motion to approve the grant, and this is an application, correct?
No,
It says,
this would be grant funds awarded to Rutherford County.
Okay, do you know how much it is?
$4,856.
All right, so I have a motion to accept the grant and a second. Any other questions for Michael, because I don't know.
It is from the Department of the Tennessee State Library and Archives, and it will be used to purchase supplies for our archives department. And like I said a minute ago, it is a no-match grant with a period of performance from October 1st, 2023 through May 31st of 2024.
Any other discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. All right. We're going to call on Chief Spence to come up and entertain us for probably the next half hour or better. The next, I don't know what, next 5 items I think he'll be covering for us. First one is the general fund budget amendment for the sheriff's office.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. I'm Steve Spence. I'm the Deputy Chief at the Sheriff's Office. The first amendment is to recognize revenue and expense for financial year 23 Bureau of Justice Apprehension Opioid Stimulant and Substance Use Site-Based Program Grant. The no-match award is a 3-year federal award of $718,524 with a period of performance October the 1st of 23 to September 30th of 26. The award will fund 2 full-time peer support specialists, a contract with Transportation Agency, Bureau of Justice agencies required conference costs, office supplies, laptops, and printers for new staff. This amendment is for the first financial year of the award. We're asking for this year to receive the $148,455 for this year. These peer specialists will be working with addicts in the jail, helping the ones that qualify to get treatment. And if they qualify through the courts and through recovery court, we'll provide transportation to treatment facilities.
And I'd like to keep these separate. I think you've got another one that goes along with that, if I'm reading this correctly. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions on this first grant? No match, and for, did you say 3 years?
Yes, sir.
After that 3rd year, are we obligated to maintain these positions?
No, sir, we're not.
So we could drop that from our budget. So basically, if we decided we didn't want to keep them, we could drop it after that 3rd year.
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Any questions from our committee, or? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on this grant.
So moved.
A motion from Reno. Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Please continue.
Yes, sir. This amendment is to recognize revenue and expenses for the financial year 23 Bureau of Justice Assistant Connect and Protect Law Enforcement Behavioral Health Response Program Grant. The 20% match award is for the first and second year, of 40% match in the 3rd year. The grant is a 3-year project for $515,045 with the federal award of $372,659, match of $142,386, with a period of performance between October the 1st of 23 to September the 30th of 26. This award will fund Sheriff's Office purchase of uniforms, vests, radios for volunteer behavioral health, 2 personnel, and a sub-award contract with volunteer behavioral health services for 2 co-responders, equipment, supplies, travel, training, and funds for the client's transportation. This amendment is for the first financial year of the award. out of the grant, it's $102,461, asking to take $25,617 from unassigned fund balance. The co-responders will be paired with our patrol officers and respond to mental health crisis and help us de-escalate and get these subjects into the right facilities.
Okay, you've heard the request. Any questions? That $25,617, you want that from unassigned, but you don't have that $25,000 hidden somewhere else in your budget?
I would have to do amendment to move it to 312.
But you do have the money available?
I can move it. I can do amendment to move it to that line item.
I would suggest myself that you do that, but I can't make that motion or suggestion. Anybody from the committee want to do that? In other words, the match would come out of the funds that he already has versus coming out of undesignated fund balance. If not, it will stand as it is. Any other questions for Mr. Spence?
Motion to approve his request.
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a second.
Second.
2 seconds. That's good. I do have a question. What specifically will these two co-responders, and I understand the equipment, but what is the actual job these two hirees would be doing?
They work for volunteer behavior health. They're
Sorry, what?
They work for volunteer behavior health, and they're clinicians. When officers go to mental health crises, they will help talk to them. And right now, when we call crisis response, it takes an hour or more for them to get on the scene. They'll be right there with our officers to help de-escalate and get patients into the facilities for treatment.
Is this a full-time job, or is this part-time for us, or are these full-time county employees?
It's full-time for volunteer behavior health. We're contracting with them to pay their salaries. Murfreesboro City's had this program for a year, and it's been very successful on getting patients into treatment and helping officers' safety and the citizens' safety.
So these employees would actually be contract?
Yes, sir.
And after the grant lapse, after the 3rd year, there's no obligation, I assume, for us to continue this, is that correct?
No, sir, we can end it after the 3rd year.
Anybody else on the committee? We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No. Motion passes. Next item is number 12, a general fund budget amendment for the BJA Virtual Reality De-escalation Grant and related MTSU contract.
Yes, sir. This amendment is to recognize revenue and expenses for the financial year 23 Bureau of Justice Assistance Virtual Reality De-escalation Site-Based Initiative Grant. The no-match award is a 3-year federal award of $685,731 with a period of performance October 1st, 23 through September 30th of 2026. The award would fund a full-time sergeant, a training simulator, training for staff, and a contract with MTSU as the research partner for VR training, development, data collection, and project evaluation. This amendment is for the first year of the award. For the first year, it would be $296,560. And also, we request the mayor to be authorized to sign the contract with MTSU pending the review by legal.
Okay, you've heard the request. Any questions? I will entertain a motion. Have a motion to approve.
Second.
A second.
Sorry, who was that? Who was the second?
Quick.
Okay.
What does this discussion, what does this do?
It's a simulator, it's a computer simulator. The officers wear goggles and they go through scenarios to help them with de-escalation. And after the program's data is collected, MTSU helps us keep track of it. And when we train all of our officers, and we can also help other agencies in the county with the same thing.
Simulating what?
Different scenarios of officers going to a scene, subject getting out of the car, with not showing his hands, and the officer has to react. The citizen might show his hands, he may banish a weapon. It helps officers how to de-escalate situations they run across daily.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, item 13, FY23, I guess that's fiscal year, COPS hiring grant and related general fund budget amendments.
Yes, sir. This amendment is to recognize revenue and expenses for the financial year 23 COPS hiring program grant. It is a 3-year federal award of $750,000 with a budget period October 1st of 23 through September 30th of 26, and performance period through September 30th for 2028. Maximum amount per officer over life of the award is $125,000. Award announcement is November the 2nd of 23. It requires a county match for expenses over the amount provided by the award. The award would fund 5 full-time patrol deputies and 1 full-time detective for the newly formed Drug and Violence Intervention Program. This amendment is for the first year of the award. County match approved November the 8th by the Rutherford County Opioid Board Committee. The first year of the grant money is $166,667, asking to use the $110,223 from the Opioid Board Committee for the match.
Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I'd like to.
You recognize?
We approved this, but my motion is to approve this, but this needs to come through us every year. So we're not saying that we're going to fund, we're not saying we're not going to fund it 3 years, but we're saying you're going to have to go through our committee every year to ask for this award.
Yes, sir.
With ROB.
Just to make this, and you explained it to them, when you're saying this committee, not budget, but the ROB committee.
No, I'm speaking for the opioid abatement.
Right, and one thing we want to explain is the opioid abatement committee funding is cut off at our fiscal year, which is June 30th. And so the funding that we would supply, if this is approved, we would be basically picking up the match. And Michael's got some new figures on the match. You want to tell us what that is?
The opioid committee yesterday approved not to exceed $165,000 and some change. That was for a full calendar year of this grant. And so we did not, with the motion that came out of the opioid board, and Commissioner Harris is correct, they did not want that to go past June 30th. So we revised the numbers to reflect the fiscal year of this grant ending June 30th. And we wanted to lower that number from the opioid board, not to tie up money that we knew we were not going to spend. And so that's why you'll see a $110,000 amount on here instead of $165,000 that came from the opioid committee. Now, one other thing I want to point out is this grant right here it'll be not to exceed that $110,000, but we don't expect to spend all of that in this fiscal year because that would assume everybody was hired, as of tomorrow or as of commission when this grant is approved. But knowing it will take, several weeks or months to have all these positions filled, so it's highly likely that what we will spend during this fiscal year will be a little bit less. But that is why you see the amount lower than what was approved at the opioid board committee yesterday.
And to further that too, the opioid board committee will pick this back up after the new budget cycle starts, and we could go ahead and fund, and probably will. Maybe speaking out of place, Chairman Harris, you can speak up, but this is something that the opioid board money can be used for.
Correct, and we're behind this. The only thing is, Mr. Chairman, is we don't like, as a board, we do not like to have recurring costs without going through us every year. So that's one of the reasons that we ask that you present this every budget year.
Yes,
so
sir.
that we can approve it.
Yes, sir.
Other than that, I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the request for the grant.
Second.
I have a second, Commissioner Sereno. Any other questions?
Could I ask, so this is 750, and it requires a match above the 750, or is it 250 a year above that number that requires a match?
So this grant's going to be, the federal award is the 750, and we're required to match 25% of this in the grant. However, this grant is a little unique in that when we have to budget for this, we're not sure, this grant will only match an entry-level deputy's salary, and that's how the figures were come up with, and they have to be new positions. However, as part of the structure here at the county, when we hire on a new deputy, maybe that has 2 years or 3 years or that's already post-certified, we don't hold them back down at a step one per se, and so that's why the budget amendment is built this way, because we would have to absorb some of that, a little bit of additional cost above the $125,000 per officer, which is how you get to the 750. So we would cover 25% of that. However, it could be a little more depending on what level, if we got an experienced officer in here, if it was an entry level. And so that's why we kind of take that into account to give us a little wiggle room. When I said we budget like this is filled the entire year. Hope that answers your question there.
And then after the 3-year period, would we then have to fund it on our own?
We would for at least 2 years. So basically, these officers would be in place for 5 years. After that second year, the way I understand it.
It's just 1 year, isn't it?
Is it 1 year?
It's 2. The grant runs through 2026, and the period of performance is through September 30th of 2028.
Oh, did that answer your question? So
Right, so basically, after the 3 years, we have to fully fund.
that's correct. And we're required to maintain that for at least 2 years. After that,
so
we could.
if you accept this grant, you have to, part of the COPS grant is you have to keep them employed and in their current position for 2 years after the grant. And I will say, we have this exact grant that is expiring. The first COPS grant we had, we're coming up on our 3rd year of that grant that just expired this last month. And so I believe that program was successful, but this would be the second round of the COPS grant.
And this is being funded through the opioid money.
The match portion.
The match portion. And then in the out year, so to speak, can that be funded using opioid money?
It possibly could.
Okay.
Possibly could. It falls under our guidelines, but that'd be something. We are, the board voted to support this up to 3 years. After that, we have not agreed to anything. So up till 3 years, we want to make sure data's in there. We want to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and then we will meet each year and vote on this. But we agreed to do this for this year. So I can't answer your question because I don't know the answer. But I can tell you that up to 3 years, we are dedicated to back this.
So for the guarantee.
Unless the data is bad, and then no, we will not.
Right, for the 3 years, and then for the out year, basically, that we are required to.
County would be picking up.
We think we can, but we're not sure. And assuming the committee wants to.
But yeah, it falls under our guidelines. So, I mean, there is money available from the Opioid Abatement Council. We're just really strong about data, and we want to make sure that every year that we had that. That's what we're trying to do with all the programs that we're using.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion from the committee? One thing I want to mention, and again, you longtime commissioners and you new ones too, we don't normally break in and hire employees in the middle of a budget year. this case, you know, these funds are covered without us having to do a tax increase. However, we were picking up 6 employees in the middle of the year with someone not paying that bill for us. I would be against this. Now, I think it's very evident to everybody in this county. If they're not, they need to wake up and smell the fentanyl, because there's way too much drug use in this county, and that's where most of the people that are sitting in that jail out there, that's why. But I think this is money well spent from the Opioid Board. Sheriff, if you want to speak, please come forward.
Kind of give an idea, because we've had stops for about 3 years now. Success of the program, and this goes along with what Chairman Harris is doing with the Opioid Board. But to kind of give you an idea, this unit has taken 457 grams of heroin that's been seized in their time, 2,198 grams of fentanyl, 25,000 grams of cocaine, 11,871 grams of methamphetamine, 884,890 grams of marijuana seized, 722 doses of units of various scheduled narcotics seized other than those. Treatment referrals, we've referred 442 citizens to treatment. 154 citizens have been admitted to the treatment facility. Let me add on that 154, that's 154 that are not incarcerated in our jail. $91 a day per inmate. So that comes to $15,214 a day that we're saving by them not being incarcerated. One of the other things that they do is they've administered 1,067 doses of Narcan during this time.
How many was that again, Sheriff?
1,067.
Thing I want to point out, that's 1,067 people that would be dead if they did not get that dose.
233 overdose responses, 20 doses of Narcan administered to overdose victims, 301 overdose follow-ups, 1,811 patrol assists, 690 narcotics assists, 182 search warrants served, 494 knock and talks conducted. This is follow-up after we have encountered somebody that is on drugs. They follow up with them. 1,208 code contacts, 1,162 opioid treatment packets have been distributed to individuals in the county. 2,331 traffic stops conducted in reference to some type of narcotic activity. 1,063 misdemeanor arrests, 363 felony arrests, 39 vehicles seized because used in drug trafficking, 221 weapons have been seized. So to say that the program has been active would be an understatement. The county is getting their money's worth. Look at it on what the help that they're getting, and people keep from relapsing, the deaths that we have prevented, and also keeping people out of our facilities. So I would say that hand in hand with what Chairman Harris is doing with the Opioid Board, it's been a huge success. But I just wanted to point that out, that I think the county is getting a...
Thank you, Sheriff. Anyone else have a question or comment on there? One thing I want to mention, and this is just, as I'm a newbie for our Opioid Board committee members, is some of the deaths that are occurring are high school kids that are picking up what's supposed to be prescription medicines that somebody's laced with fentanyl, and they're dying. They're taking what they think is a prescription pill, and it takes, I think it's 2 grains of salt equals amount of fentanyl in a small capsule to kill you. And it won't be just a trial, I'm trying a drug out here, is I'm going to take this pill and die. And that's what's happening. That's why we're seeing these deaths. Anyway, that's why I'm in support of picking up these 6 people. Any other comments? Got a motion and a second. Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Item 14, Statewide School Resource Officer Grant.
We're requesting to accept the State of Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security School Resource Officers Grant. This grant runs from July 1st of 23 through June 30th of 2024, $3,675,000 with no match.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just had a question. So is this, back in budget season, we were trying to figure out how much the SRO money was going to be, and it was undetermined amount, so we couldn't include it. How does this match up? No pun or anything intended. How does this match up with the amount that was budgeted, and then how does it carry over, if you will? So, in other words, is this something that we can now set aside for next year and just kind of have a rolling number, or how does it work?
You're right. You're asking the right question there. Michael, go ahead.
So we did not budget this because we were not sure exactly of the dollar amount, exactly on the school number. Matter of fact, we had 1 or 2 school numbers left off of this for various reasons. So it was I think it was about $100,000 less. I think we thought it was going to be 3.9 originally when we were looking, and it's a little bit less than that. So we did not budget for it during budget time. And also, one of the reasons you do not have a budget amendment before you tonight to recognize that revenue, and you will at some point this fiscal year, is we're waiting on the state legislature to meet this year and to tell us if it's going to be reoccurring or not. Now, I can't imagine they're going to stop it after this, but this was a one-time deal at the start of this, and so we want to be sure before we put that money into their budget and then allocate the portion that we were already spending on this somewhere else. We want to be sure it's reoccurring so we don't kind of get out over our skis and then have to find an additional $3.6 million somewhere. But hopefully the state legislature will make this a continuing thing, and then we would build this into their budget every year to fund a large majority part of the SROs that they have at the schools.
So that initial amount, is it going to be rolling forward, or can we recoup the initial amount that we put in? In other words, could this cover the current year? Next year, if it turns out to be recurring, can that cover the next budget year? So we've got an extra $3.67 million.
That we could spend on equipment.
Trying to figure out how it works so that we could then apply that. If there are other needs for the sheriff's department, that's great, but there may be other needs that it could be reallocated, and that's a broader question.
So during the budget cycle, and when we find out if this is recurring or not, I think that's the conversation this body and the commission will have, is it would free up $3.6 million for you to allocate as the commission would see fit going forward.
So if it's continuing, the answer is yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And if it's not continuing, if the legislature were to stop this, then you would have $3.6 million additional of one-time money we did not budget.
Well, I'm all for building a little reserve if we need it anyway, but that's kind of where I am on it. But at the same time, if there needs to be a recognition and a discussion next budget cycle, then we'll see where the legislature is, see where we are, candidly, as a commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Do we have a motion on this, Mark? Yes. We have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. And carries. Item 15, Drug Fund Budget Amendment.
This amendment is to move money from the restricted for public safety to maintenance and repair of building, animal, food and supplies, law enforcement supplies, and motor vehicles. Asking to take $500,000 from restricted for public safety, place $105,000 in maintenance and repair of the building, $23,250 in the animal, food and supplies, $81,750 into the law enforcement supplies and $290,000 into the motor vehicle line item.
Okay, you've heard the discussion. Any questions?
One question. How many vehicles?
3 right now. The ones that the deputies we got approved through budget this year, narcotics is going to pay for their vehicles, equipment, and outfitting the vehicles.
What vehicle are you bidding on?
I'm not for sure. It's going to be a patrol car. It's probably going to be Ford Explorers.
Okay, you know the THP's going to the Dodge Chargers, so undoubtedly they're getting a bargain on them.
Are these undercover vehicles?
No, sir. They're going to be marked units.
Okay.
We've had bad luck, Commissioner, with the Dodges over the Durangos and Chargers. A lot of maintenance and problems with them.
Any other questions for Mr. Spence? Commissioner Irving?
It kind of relates to, is any of this money eligible for opioid type funds or no?
This money
Or
is
is
in.
this drug fund?
No, this is drug fund money and the drug fund money at the sheriff's discretion.
That's that separate account that y'all get to.
This is Fund 122,
Okay, got
the
it.
drug
Okay, I
fund.
was just trying to figure out. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve and a second. Commissioner Piercy. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Well, I told you it'd be right at a half hour. It was at least that, wasn't it? Yes.
Y'all have a good night.
I was wondering if we could take a short break, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Short break.
Y'all are asking for a short break? Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to make a motion for a little
Okay.
bit, 2-hour break.
We'll take a 5-minute break. Detention.
Good evening, Lynn Duke, Director, Juvenile Detention. This is a MOU with a company called Volunteer Behavior Health Systems. It is the same company that we've used for years. The county attorney has looked over this agreement. The Public Safety my board decided that the agreement was going to be for a year, and Public Safety agreed to that. That's not filled in, but that was the plan. And the rate exhibit is at the end. This is something that is already budgeted in our current fiscal year budget, and these services are required by state minimum standards.
If we use the same company to do the same exactly.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee for Lynn? Not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Sereno moves to approve. Do I hear a second? Second. Commissioner Gooch. Any further discussion?
What's the total contract value? I'm just looking to see. How much is this contract worth?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, how much is this contract worth?
Well, it is, the rates are dependent upon if the services are needed, the child has to be referred to the service. And then depending upon what their needs, each individual session could be a 30-minute session, a 60-minute session, it could be a follow-up, and those prices are at on the last page of this agreement. The money for these services, if and when they are needed, are already included in our budget.
So it's capped, or it's capped by the budget amount?
Yes, this contract sets the rates as needed, and then the cap would be what's in her budget, so this contract doesn't have a cap.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Lynn. Item 17, financial assurance and lien of bond for the demolition landfill.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Bishop Wagner. I'm the Solid Waste Director. First item is it is a financial assurance letter that we received from the state. It is something that comes annually to Solid Waste from TDEC. It is in lieu of a bond. It's a guarantee that we provide to the state that if there are any remediation needs, we have been setting aside money in the savings to be able to cover those. There's no money out of our pocket for this as a county unless we were to need the funds, but it's something that has been sent to, it was sent to the old director, to his email, and we didn't receive it. And so I was sent a letter from the state saying, hey, we need you to take a look at this. I got in contact with Michael's office and the auditors, and we'd like to sign this over so we can get in compliance with the state.
I have a motion to approve. Here, second. Second, Commissioner Johnson.
I don't understand exactly what you're asking us to do.
Part of the landfill is a setting aside money for post-closure costs if there's an issue with one of the 2 landfills that we have out there. And so in lieu of the state requiring us to have a bond, we set aside a certain amount of money in lieu of going and paying for a bond, and that's what this is. The state sets that inflation rate, or sets the rate every year that either goes up or down depending on what the state sets. So if we did not do this, we would have to get a bond to protect the 2 landfills that we have out there that are, one is in post-closure and the other one is close.
But, yeah, one of them's moving towards post-closure.
So does this cost us?
Nope.
Nothing.
It doesn't cost us unless.
Yeah.
Less. But the state got hung for a bill for one of the counties, and they've actually upped this. Normally, we would see these reduce over the closed landfills, and that kind of made a change after somebody defaulted and the state ended up having to pay the bill. So that's why our cost is a little bit higher, or what our potential cost would be is a little bit higher.
Is every budget you ask for money for landfill maintenance, and you have a budget for that?
Yes.
Do you take part of that money and put it aside, like in lieu of this bond?
No.
Okay, so if something happened, we got to come out of the money ourselves, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to think. It sounds to me like it's instead of a bond, but we still have money there in case it happens.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Mark, call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Motion carries.
The next item I have is a budget amendment to move money from the 55732-718 line for motor vehicles into 55739-399 other contracted services in the amount of $100,000 to pay for the remainder of the fiscal year's single stream recycling activities.
Have a motion to approve. Commissioner Gooch, second. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Good evening.
Thank you, Bishop. Item 18, General Fund Budget Amendment for Human Resources, and I think Michael's going to cover this for Sonia tonight.
Sonia would have been here tonight, but she is out due to having surgery, so she did present this at steering, but then I'll be the one presenting it tonight. And what this budget amendment is requesting additional funds for our annual employee recognition event. And the reason we're asking for additional funds is for 2 reasons. One is the majority of this event is funded by donations, and one of the vendors who donates to this is not able to donate the same amount as they were in previous years, and our cost of catering the event has went up. This amendment is based on a participation rate, and so we based it on a full participation rate. It's likely that it could be a little less than this, but we went ahead and based it on the full participation rate. But however, the average participation rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 to 70%, but we based this on full participation rate.
Heard the discussion. Do I hear any questions or a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Second. Commissioner Irving. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Motion carries. Okay. Item 19 has been taken off of our agenda. Going to item 20, an application for Broadband Ready Communities Grant. Eric?
Eric Hennessy, Chief of Staff. We are asking to apply for this no-match $100,000 grant. This funding is to pass through to 2 local nonprofit organizations that specifically serve the target populations and have the capacity to promote digital adoption of or literacy such as telehealth, workforce development, education, and making public Wi-Fi available and accessible to their clients. This is a Broadband Ready Communities Grant. The county is required to use a development district professional grant administrator across the grant cycle. Rutherford County will engage the services of GNRC for this purpose. An administrative agreement will be brought to the commission for approval upon award. Approximately 6% of the awarded amount, up to $6,000, will be used to pay for that. So, basically what we're going to do is we're going to pass this on to Greenhouse Ministries and Journey Home, and they will use it to allow for Wi-Fi in outside of their facilities. They're going to increase their computer labs and that kind of thing. So it's to be used for equipment.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Serino. Any questions? No discussion, call roll.
Commissioner
Yes.
Gooch?
Sorry, do you have a question, Commissioner?
You jumped
I'm
the gun.
sorry, I said
You
yes
jumped the
before you
gun? Is
called
that what
my
you're telling
name.
me?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinial?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Item 21, cybersecurity grant application for information technology. Okay. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Darren Moore. I'm the Assistant Director of OIT. Cody wishes he could have been here tonight, but he has wanted me to offer his apologies for not being able to make it. He is celebrating his 20-year wedding anniversary tonight. So what we are wanting to do is we're requesting authorization for us to apply for a cybersecurity grant with the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration Strategic Technology Solutions Division. The grant request is for $215,000 and does not require any county matching funds. The grant money, should we be awarded it, the amount requested would be used to improve our cybersecurity profile, giving us a tool to help assess, monitor, and manage cyber risk. We're requesting an affirmative vote, allowing us to apply for the grant.
You did say there's no match, right?
No match.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion?
There's no strings to this.
Right.
And it's just a one-time, so there's no continuing cybersecurity obligation.
No, it's for a one-year deal. We will have the option at the end of that year to renew. And the money has already been released for year 2 for the grant. We will apply again next year. If we get the grant, we'll continue to use the service. If we don't get the grant, and it's not in our budget, we can stop the thing.
Any other questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrina?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
Darren. Item 22, General Debt Service Fund Budget Amendment. Michael?
So as you know, in October last month, we issued bonds for several school projects and county projects. And so back during the budget time, we were not sure what the allocation of principal, interest, or issuance costs were going to be. And so now that we have issued that bond or closed on that bond, we now know what those are. And so this budget amendment reflects the actual principal and interest costs that we will incur this fiscal year. So we put we put the money in interest. We didn't know what it was going to be principal and interest, and so this is us breaking it out into the line items that it needs to be based on the issuance that we had last month.
Basically, we're bookkeeping.
Correct.
Any questions for Michael? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I just have a question. Do we have a sense from this, now that we've done the bookkeeping, for the borrowing capacity of the county, given the amount of debt we currently have, and how much? I know we plugged in, or the county, the commission plugged in and adopted a tax rate that would have allowed for an elementary school in the range of $60 million. So I presume, and a transfer station, so I presume that would have been in there too. But do you have a sense for the overall budget capacity, maybe including those or plus in addition to those?
So I can't give you an exact, I wasn't prepared tonight to give you an exact number of our borrowing capacity because keep in mind, we can borrow over, when we put the $60 million in there for elementary school, that was to have a balanced debt service fund. And so there's a difference in us having a balanced revenue expense for debt service versus our borrowing capacity, because we can borrow and spend down fund balance, assuming no future debt issuances. So I don't have a number now to tell you what exactly our capacity is, but I can tell you that we budgeted with everything we borrowed plus in elementary school to have a balanced debt service budget this year and next year.
Yeah, and I apologize I didn't mention it, but before, but I'm just trying to get a sense for, do we have, using whatever mechanism you want to use, how much, could you venture a guess? Or if you don't want to, that's fair too.
I will say if we borrowed any more than the elementary school, it would require us to spend down fund balance in the debt service fund.
Thank you.
Which we don't want to do. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions? Call roll, Mark.
I don't have a motion in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, I will entertain one.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion from Commissioner Irving.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Johnson. Any other discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrina?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Item 23, Annual Report of Fixed Assets. We don't take any action on this. This is information.
This item is for information for you. I just want to make one really good shout out that our inventory control lady in my office, Denise, is awesome. And I will say that we generally have about a 90 to 100% accuracy on our inventory results, and she does an awesome job. And even on the ones that are missing or that we can't find on the first or second go around, we constantly try to find those. And for example, we had something missing for 2 or 3 years the other day, and we were able to find it and figure out where it was. So just because you see it on a missing list doesn't mean we ignore it or stop looking for it or just go by the wayside. But as you can see on the accuracy on page 8 of that, we have a pretty high accuracy on our inventory. So we're pretty pleased with that.
I hadn't had a chance to look through these. Just out of curiosity, I saw solid waste is missing 10%, something like that. What was their item?
I don't have it broken down, or it is not broken down on the missing asset list by department, but they have a lot fewer assets than, for example, like a high school. So if they were missing 5 assets, percentage-wise, it may show 10%, where if a school was missing 100, it may only be 2%.
You're not talking monetary, you're just talking number of items.
Yes, number of
So
items.
If they've got 100 items.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And you can look at the missing asset list. A lot of these things are TVs or monitors that could have been broken, or one of these is a deep fryer on the missing asset list, but that could be a booster club that bought that at a football game and they can't locate it for some reason, that it got moved to a different stadium or something like that. For example, the other day we had a tractor that went missing, and it was sent off to be repaired under a previous administration at a school, and we were able to track that down. But it could be any number of things like that when you think about the number of inventory items that we have at our schools and county departments and things like that.
I can get with Bishop and find out what's going on. Thank you. Any other questions on the asset report? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Item 24, National Opioid Settlement Funds.
Okay, and on what this is at a recent training we went to, we've gotten, as they've rolled out the opioid fund distribution, we've gotten more training and more direction on how to account for this in our general ledger and in the accounting sense of this. And so I included a PowerPoint on the SharePoint from the Comptroller's office that was given at a presentation that we were part of or went to. And so if you go to slide 3 on there, it talks about 3 buckets. And so one of the buckets is the state fund. That's the 15% of all the opioid abatements they took right off the top that the state did. The other bucket is a 15% subdivision fund, and that is money we get directly from a Brown Greer, a law firm that sends us direct payments. And then there's a 70-cent abatement fund, and that is the majority of the money that the opioid committee is issuing out to nonprofits or to our departments and things like that. So as of right now, the subdivision fund that we've received is a little over $500,000, almost $600,000, and our abatement fund so far this last fiscal year we received $1.5 million, and we're projected to receive another $1.5 million this year. So the abatement fund does have a time limit on what we're to spend that money down, and we report that regularly to the state on what we're spending that on. But the subdivision fund that I told you we got directly from Brown Greer, and that also is payments over a multi-year period, that is for past remediation uses. And so what that means is the ones from the state that have a time frame are restricted based on the source of that revenue. The money we're getting from Brown Greer, because it is for past uses, by default will end up going into our unassigned fund balance. We had previously restricted it because we weren't sure that's where we assumed that it should go. However, if this body and the commission wishes that to stay opioid money, it will need to vote to commit that money, the unrestricted portion or past remediation money. And this slide's also, on the next slide, also talks about what is opioid past remediation, and it gives the definition of that as set out by the state. So I hope this is helpful as you look through this, but if we wish to use that direct subdivision money from Brown Greer for future opioid uses, this body will have to take a vote to commit that in our committed fund balance.
Yes, I make a motion to do so.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion, questions, anybody?
Okay, so the subdivision fund is how much?
Well, currently right now, I believe we have right around $600,000, and so those payments are going to be coming over, it's either 15 or 18 years, I get them swapped. So some portions of that are going to be over 15 and some are going to be over 18 years. The second slide deck on there is going to tell you the course of that. And so that amount is subject to change based on future redistribution. So I can only tell you how much we have right now from Brown Greer. And so that's subject to change based on the redistribution from Brown Greer. But as of right now, it's very close to about $500,000 a year. That's what we received last year, and that's what we're on track to receive this year.
So $600,000 a year.
About $500,000 a year. We've already gotten one payment this year in this fiscal year, and last year we got about $500,000.
And then the abatement fund is how much a year?
Last year we received a little over 1.5 million, and I believe it's January of this fiscal year we should receive a little over another 1.5 million.
I can tell you, we will receive in January $1,532,267.83. In 2025, we're going to receive $683,508.40. In 2026, we're going to receive $769,012.32. Now, if you look at what the slide that he showed you, this is only on the lawsuits that are Amerisource, McKesson, Johnson & Johnson, and the second wave is coming, which is Walgreens, Walmart. So those numbers, Wayne, can fluctuate because there's other lawsuits right now pending that the money has not been sent out yet. All this is saying is that we're going to use this money for opioid, for our opioid programs.
The abatement bucket is required to be restricted. And so we assumed that the subdivision bucket would also be required to be restricted. But because that money is coming from Brown Greer and is for past remediation, the default now becomes unassigned fund balance. However, this body can choose to commit that as this body has done other sources of funds. And so we can't restrict it, but you can commit it just like in the past you've done for solid waste emergencies and things like that. But if you commit this and then the future committals, then we'll spend it in accordance with the way we're doing it now.
So the abatement funds required to be committed funds?
The abatement funds is required to be restricted.
Restricted, okay, got it.
Correct.
So we're really talking about $600 or thereabouts?
$600,000 that we currently have.
$600,000. Over what period of time do we, 18 years? So, and what is, I just don't know, what's the opioid budget per se?
Well, we get, like I said, we get just south of $600,000. It's unrestricted. We can do what we want with that amount. The 1.5 is restricted, which means we had to go by guidelines to award that money. So what we're saying here is that this money, should be allocated towards the opioid programs that we have. So we're saying we don't want this to go, what am I saying here, Mike? We don't want it to go into general, we don't want it to be open except for opioid programs.
If this body would need to take a vote to commit that second bucket on the screen, the subdivision fund, which is 15% of all the opioid settlements, take a vote to commit that for opioid use.
So there's no question, I guess we can spend $2.1 million. That budget, do we have kind of a budget for that?
So what happens is,
I'm trying to get just a sense for
the opioid committee has a pot of money, right? They have, let's take the 1.5 restricted pot that they're working from right now, right?
Okay.
And so last year we received that. It rolled into a restricted fund balance. And so as they meet monthly, they meet now the Wednesday before budget, they meet, applications come from MTSU, they vet them, they approve them, and then I keep a running ledger of all the stuff we've approved. And then as that approved, just like tonight, you saw a budget amendment for the COPS grant, and you're fixing to see another one here down under, towards the end of the agenda tonight. And so their budget is the 1.5 million. I'm just using that as a pot, right? And so right now, we've been working off a budget of about 2.1 or 2.2 million because we thought that 600,000 had to be restricted. And now we know that there has to be a vote taken to commit that money if you want to continue to use that for opioid remediation.
Okay, so I'm just saying it's not just accumulating there. It's actually being used.
Correct. So
actually,
to date, we've already
I just want to make sure
they've already allocated a little over $700,000 or $800,000, and they get monthly reports to track that. I think that's what Commissioner Harris was mentioning tonight for the COPS grant, is they're going to track the progress, see if that program is successful. And so all of these, they don't approve anything past the fiscal year. And so all of these organizations, they come back to the committee every year or on a regular basis to report their progress. And if the committee is happy with that, then they can reapply for more money next year through the opioid committee. And then that budget amendment comes up through the budget amendment process like you're seeing tonight here.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? I have a motion and a second. I believe I am correct this time. Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 25, grant director discussion. We'll go back to Michael again.
So here recently, I have the sad news that our awesome grants person in my office is looking to retire. She's already tried to retire once. We did not let her, so we forced her to stay longer. But no, she agreed to stay longer. And so now that her spouse is fully retired, she's looking at retiring as well. However, she has agreed to give us somewhat of an open-ended retirement, because this is one of the most important positions that we have. And so I have some statistics for you tonight. And so that position, one person, helps manage over $24 million worth of grants that the county has. And so it is highly important, everything from grants at the sheriff's office to grants with nonprofits, pass-through grants. Matter of fact, she's been on phone calls with the grant that was mentioned tonight for the $100,000 going to Greenhouse Ministries of Journeys, and she was very instrumental in last year's $700,000, a little over $700,000 grant for Doors of Hope. So with all that being said, I'm asking for two things tonight as part of this. One, I would like to get permission to backfill that position starting in January to train alongside of our current grants person, because there's a lot of information that goes into these federal and state grants. And so a lot of these grants are reimbursement. So it's imperative that we have somebody that understands the rules, the allowability, the compliance with these grants, because we don't want to accept this reimbursement grant like a lot of the grants you saw tonight, and we don't follow the compliance, and then we don't get reimbursed, and we're out the money that we had planned to get. And so I just can't speak highly enough to what great of a job she's done and how big of an asset she is. So that's the first thing I'm asking for, is to be allowed to backfill that position starting in January, to train through the end of the fiscal year with her. And the second thing that I'm asking for, it's in conjunction with this, is right now she works a lot of hours, and we miss a lot of grant opportunities just based on capacity within the county, with having one person that is really responsible for the reimbursement of all these grants. For example, we've missed out on a lot of community development block grants. We've missed out on some affordable housing grants, some things like that. Earlier this year, we partnered with GNRC on a grant, and we're paying them $30,000 or $40,000 out of that grant for administration cost. And so what I would really like to request is that as we backfill this position, we convert this to a grant director position, with the hopes of bringing on in the future budget years, whether that be next year or the year after that, an additional grant writer or an additional grant accountant that would be funded by indirect costs from future grants. And so that would be my request tonight. And I should add, the reason you don't have a budget amendment is because I have this money already in our current budget. When Lisa Nolan retired previously, she's on a 120-day contract with us as she finalizes some reports for our ARPA program, for our ERA program. And we have not needed her as many hours as we budgeted, so I would like to use the savings from that to fund what I just described to you tonight, so that we wouldn't require any more funds in this budget year.
Do you need a motion?
I do.
To that effect? I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay, have a motion to approve the backfilling starting in January, and also to hire a person with the...
Well, it would be to the backfilling starting in January, and changing the title of that position, with hopes of growing that. I don't want to say growing that into a department. You know, we're one of the largest counties in the state that does not have a grant department or a community development department, and so we miss out on a lot of things like affordable housing, like these CDBG block grants, over the years, and I've kind of compiled a list with our grants person now, and we'd love to keep, for example, with GNRC, we're paying them between $30,000 and $40,000 to manage a grant. I would love to keep that in-house to manage, to do that in the future. So it would be two things: approving a backfill of a new position starting in January, and changing the title and grade of that position.
Okay, I have a motion, but I don't have a second yet.
Second.
2 seconds. Commissioner, go ahead.
Okay, so when you get a grant, it's more than writing a grant. You've got to monitor that grant for compliance all year. And we have one person that does all that?
So we have one person that all the money flows through. We have several departments who have, for example, the sheriff's office is still here tonight. They have somebody over there who helps search for grants and things like that. But our one bottleneck right now is all of those flow for the reimbursement and the money flow into the finance office, and we have one person who does the reimbursement or the tracking, the financial piece of it for all of the grants in the county. So you may have Kerry Clark who does some grants with EMA, but that still all flows into the finance office for grants. I believe the sheriff's office has several. I mean, you saw 3 tonight. All of that flows through, and she's on all the phone calls with them. Tonight, I think I had asked Chief Spence to stay just in case he could speak to the kind of the importance, I think, of that position and how much of a loss it would be if we weren't able to backfill or get that knowledge transferred to somebody else.
And so you said secondary, you would need or would like another grant writer or another, I guess, a staff member for this director to monitor.
In the future, I don't want that now. As we bring somebody new online, train them up, then I would like what we can do, what's called indirect costs with a lot of these grants, or admin costs. And so my vision would be that over the next 2 to 5 years, we would grow this to where we get a grant, and all these indirect costs would end up funding that next position to allow us to get more grants to bring that into to Rutherford County, right? Or to partner with maybe the city's grant department. The city has a community development department. When we looked at all this, when me and Sonia, the mayor's office, met, we looked at what does Hamilton County have, what does Knox County have, what does the city of Murfreesboro have, and we looked at what does Nashville have. They're a little larger than us, so we really focused on Knox, Hamilton, Chattanooga, Murfreesboro, things like that, and they all have a community development department or a grant department that can really reach out. And so if you remember, one example would be, if you remember previously to me, Lisa Nolan took on that ERA program, the Emergency Rental Assistance. Well, she and 2 other people in our department, one being the grants person I'm speaking of, and another lady, did all of this after hours. So they did it all on overtime because we didn't have that department to help that. And so they worked weekends, nights, things like that to try to keep that emergency rental assistance in the county. And so if you remember, we gave up that second tranche of ERA money, and the state managed that because we just were at capacity to manage that. And so that would be my vision, is to hope that the grants would end up paying to grow this, to bring more opportunities to the county.
Well, with that being said, I guess I'm curious, why would we want to wait 2 to 5 years to hire someone that the grant money could help pay for, and they would be able to reach out more?
I want to make sure that whoever we end up bringing in has the ability to train under our current grants person. And I think if that person were to catch on, if the right candidate were to come in and that person were to catch on quicker, I think we would have a different conversation as part of the budget process this coming year, right? That would be my hope.
Okay.
And so I just say, at minimum, I want it to be that 2 to 5 years, because a lot of these community development block grants are very stringent on the requirements because they're coming from the federal government, and they tend not to do anything easy for us. So.
And you said you researched other counties our size. How many does Hamilton County have?
So most counties had anywhere from 3 to 5 people. They generally had a community development or grant director. They may have had an assistant director. They would have a grant accountant or grant coordinator, and maybe a grant writer. And then a lot of times they would have a secretary or office person. And I really feel like we could absorb those administrative functions. What we miss is the person we have now is probably on 5 to 10 calls a day. I call her, and I believe I called her the other day, and she was on the phone with Steve and his staff talking about a grant. But I'll try to catch another Zoom call for her on her behalf. And so that's kind of what we've kind of been able to analyze as our bottleneck right now as far as not getting more grants.
Thank you.
Michael, did you say part of what Lisa Dolan is still doing is working on that one grant, correct?
That's correct.
So we've got a second person helping us, and still not able to take care of our needs there.
So Lisa is coming in and doing our ERA reports that we're still having to fill out, because keep in mind, all of these grants, even when they end, we're done with our emergency rental assistance program, but Lisa still has to come in and we still file reports. And the federal government has changed that 2 or 3 times within the last quarter alone on the type of reports we have to file. And so we're filing ARPA reports, all that money we're filing. And then now we've started doing the opioid, which is an awesome thing. But so now me and another department head stay after hours and file all of the quarterly and monthly reports for the opioid stuff. And so we're just trying to get where maybe we're not working nights and weekends and for that. And so as important as that opioid program is, you kind of just heard, we're going to be multiple millions of dollars coming down the pipe for the next 15 or 18 years. And so as we just got the first tranche of reimbursements for this opioid this last month, and so we're reimbursing salaries, tracking all of that. And so we're just kind of at a bottleneck there on the capacity.
Any other questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 26, Rutherford Opioid Board recommendations.
So this is a budget amendment. This would be the other 2 items that were approved at the opioid board yesterday. And as you mentioned earlier, or as we mentioned earlier, you were asking about the process here. The other one was related to sheriffs, is why we presented under that. These were 2 other items that were approved at the opioid committee. One of them was billboard advertising, and the other was funding, for Endure Athletics, and that was approved yesterday, and you can see the dollar amounts on your screen. And so this would come out of that restricted pot of money that we were talking about a minute ago. And this did pass unanimously at the opioid board.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries, which moves us down to other business. There is none, but however, I wanted to mention something just for information today. I went to Smyrna last night and attended League of Women Voters had put on a program to talk about school needs in the Smyrna area, which evolved into the whole county area. But one thing that came up was a lot of the information that the citizens there were given. It's out there and it's available. Our budgets are open, but it's hard for an individual to look at that and tell exactly what's going on. And one of the requests was, would it be possible to post something that would kind of give a needs of, say, costs that we've got. For instance, we know what the Board of Education is asking for, but a lot of the citizens don't. And then 2, they also don't know what our revenues are, and then what it would cost for us to fund those needs. But anyway, the reason I'm just even mentioning it, I want y'all to think about it. I'm kind of blindsiding Michael here, and I'm not necessarily wanting to put it off on you. This may be something that Lisa Kay can do for us, but is there some way that we can work with our different agencies to get this information and something that's digestible for Joe Blow off the street? He doesn't have to go look to all of our budgets to figure out, hey, we're going to be needing to build X number of schools per year for the next few years, not to mention all the other infrastructure, and we've got this pot of money to spend, and this is what the needs are, and this is what we got. So where are we headed? Basically, we're headed toward funding those, but how? And, having that information out there where citizens can see that and why they don't understand sometimes the need for a property tax increase or a tax increase. But if that information's out there and they see what choices we have to generate revenue, what our pending cost is due to our high growth. And I think that would be advantageous to our citizens to see that kind of, and like I said, I don't know the best way to go about that and some of the information, but.
So the schools put out what they call a 5-year plan, which they do present to Health and Ed pretty regularly. And so, I mean, we definitely can make that part of the budget book online if you would like. We can add that. I can add a page in there that's in the first, few pages of the book that's right behind kind of our revenues and appropriations. The one thing I would like to point out is we do several graphs, pie charts and everything in those first 8 pages of the budget book, which is available online anytime. And then one of the things we do as well is significant changes so that they know when we did raise taxes exactly what that reason was. But if we needed something like that for the county, we would have to do kind of a county 5-year plan. And so I think we could definitely do that, but that would require kind of this body giving me direction on what y'all wanted to see in that 5-year plan, whether that's a transfer station, a new jail, public health and safety buildings, all of those things. We could definitely put something together. I do want to add one thing. I did have a text and now I have an email that solid waste was due to a couple dumpsters, and they were trying to do inventory, and those dumpsters were on trucks driving. So the inventory person in our department just texted me. So that was due to dumpsters, and they have since revised that to 100%. They were able to track those 2 dumpsters
They found
down.
their dumpster, okay. Well, great.
But I think to do something like that, we would have to have our own 4 or 5-year plan, and then we could definitely put something like that together.
Well, and normally we do have a plan, like I said, I'll point back at some of the longer serving commissioners, like the Judicial Center over here. We worked for how many years, Paul or Jeff? At least 8 years. We wanted it. We got to figure out how to pay for it. And those are the type things that I'd like to see, us to be able to post, and whether it's coming directly from you, it's kind of grouping all of this. For instance, schools, we're budgeting, $18 million on maintenance for the schools. Well, what you probably don't know, if you hadn't followed them, is there's a $200 million backlog in maintenance for roofs for the schools. It's $200 million, okay? And that doesn't just jump at you. If you're reading these pages, that doesn't jump out at you. But, if you see things like that and what our wants and our needs are, what revenue sources we have, I think that'd be a boon for us and help us to explain to the citizens better, what we're working against. I did make a statement the other night, and we're basically a victim of our own success. This is a wonderful place to live. We have low taxes. A lot of people may not agree to that, but these people that are moving in from out of state that are used to paying, $8,000 on a single family home, and they look at it and say, this is not right. Well, it is right, and we work hard to do that, and we have very good schools and things, and it's hard to maintain that. But what I want to do is try to condense a spot where we can get that information out there, and I wanted to let you guys think about it a while. I'm not asking for any action. I just wanted to throw it out there and say, hey, can we do this? Any other questions or discussion? Not, we're adjourned.